First of all, I want to say thank you to the organizers of this conference. I feel incredibly honored to be speaking in front of you. I met Ryan last year, and I'm very happy to actually be bringing a robot to a robot conference. It seems most of you forgot yours, but I've got one, so it's okay. And I want to start by saying that the one definition of a robot that I really like is a device that doesn't work during demos. So let's find out whether or not I've brought a robot or not. So this little guy is named Alistair, and well, first let me start by saying my name is Ian Danforth. I'm the founder of Embodied AI, and what I'm trying to do with this little guy is to give you a glimpse, using a prototype, more of a proof of concept, of what I think the future will be of consumer robotics in one specific space, that of pets. I think that this field is about to explode, and I'll tell you why. Oh dear. Okay, well that's supposed to say now, and it did on my slides earlier, and I titled this talk Now because I wanted to give you the impression that what is happening in robotics today is happening now. It's not happening a year from now. It's not happening 5 years from now. Robots are going to be real, and they are going to be part of your life. And people have said for quite a number of years now that household robotics is 5 years away or 10 years away. Strong artificial intelligence is at least 10 years away, maybe 30 years or never. And this is largely because we have been waiting for sufficient science in terms of machine learning, algorithmic science, as well as neuroscience, understanding what it means to be an intelligent creature. We've been waiting for sufficient computation. 10, 20 years ago, it was impossible to do the kind of computation that your brain does or was necessary to do vision processing or any other sensory processing. We've been waiting for sufficient bandwidth. A lot of these applications require the ability to stream data off of these little devices for centralized computation. We've been waiting for affordable components. There's a great story about the Stanford cart developed right here that 30 years ago, the single digital camera that it used to do motion, to drive, cost $50,000. And a digital camera that's much, much better than that is embedded in a little smartphone that costs cents, maybe $1. We've also been waiting for a global market, somewhere that people who are interested in selling new and creative robotic devices can instantly reach the world, because these guys are not cheap. They're actually quite expensive to make and develop, and so if you have access to a huge market instantly, it's much easier for innovators to get off the ground. We've also been waiting for societal readiness. We need people to be ready for these things to come into their life, to get over sort of the hump, the assumption that all robots look like Rosie. Now we know that people are okay with having robot vacuum cleaners, and they know that there are a certain limited subset of robotic capabilities that are still interesting and useful. And we've also been waiting for sufficient data. Now today, I think we have sufficient science. We have incredible machine learning algorithms, breakthroughs over the last 5 and 10 years. Jeffrey Hinton's work now being implemented at Google, absolutely mind-blowing. We have unprecedented understanding of the neocortex, the seat of our intelligence, and how the cortical architecture allows for us to be intelligent, and this is true cross-mammal species. I believe we have sufficient computation. We have access to the cloud. We have nearly unlimited processing. We have sufficient bandwidth. Every one of your homes, every one of your phones has access to more bandwidth than most government research labs had 20 years ago. We have affordable components, Raspberry Pi, Arduino, Connect, Leap Motion, all these wonderful sensors that people can build into their robots, and some of which exist in this little guy here. And we have that global market that I was talking about. And I believe that we have a ready society. This is still a hypothesis, but I believe we absolutely do. So because of this, I think we need a new timeline. And this is both from my perspective of trying to build these guys and build a company and get out there in front of the world. I think in 6 months, you're going to see incredible, unexpected new robots that you want to own in your home. Some of them will be pets. Some of them will look more like toys. Some of them you will have no idea that they're robots at all, but they're going to be coming very, very soon. There are a couple of companies that are still in stealth mode that I know about that are going to be coming out pretty soon. And a year from now, there are going to be thousands of homes to have these robotic devices that are connected robotic devices in them. 2 years from now, tens of thousands of homes. And I think one thing, if you remember the last point that I was talking about, that need for data, I think in 3 years, the explosions of home robotics is going to give us sufficient data to have these actually become fairly intelligent, remarkably intelligent. What do I mean by that? I mean that you would turn to your friend and say, wow, that was actually sort of smart. It knew to lift up the covers to find my keys when it was looking for it. Really smart little guys. And 5 years from now, I think that we're going to start to see the emergence of something that is worthy of the term artificial intelligence. And this is because of those breakthroughs in machine learning, because of those breakthroughs in neuroscience, and because of this massive explosion of data. And I think the data is really the key point, and it's something that hasn't been discussed too much here today. People have talked about IP law, and the value of the software and the value of the hardware, but the data is really, really important. And why data? Well, data lets you do amazing things, and here are 3 robots that you might know about. One is a quadcopter from Raffaello D'Angelo's lab. You may have seen these guys throwing tennis balls and ping pong balls back and forth, throwing pendulums back and forth. Really amazing. Big Dog from Boston Dynamics. I think everyone knows about that. It's an amazingly well-balanced system. And a high-speed robot hand from the Ishikawa Oku lab at the University of Tokyo. And what do these 3 things have in common? Why do I put them up here? I think that these are the cutting edge of robotics today, because they have sufficient data. Each one of these, the quadcopter, all the quadcopter demos you may have seen online, are enabled because there are incredibly high-speed cameras surrounding the devices, allowing them to do the vision processing that they need to do to make the demos work. The Big Dog is unique in how quickly it can react to its environment based on how quickly it is sensing data from its motors, how fast it's actuated. Millions of times a second. You sample, you can get a rigid structure to act like a spring. It's incredible. You may not have seen the demos with this fast robot hand, but it can bounce a ping pong ball between 2 fingers at about 4 inches. I can't do that. It can flip a pencil across its fingers and back. I can't do that. It's really impressive, and the reason it is able to do these incredible feats of physical dexterity is because of the data that they capture at incredibly high speed from cameras. Pointing at the device. And it's that ability to take new forms of data at higher resolutions, at higher speeds, and put them into these breakthrough machine learning technologies, mix them in with our new understandings of neuroscience and how intelligence comes about, that will get us to the next level. And the tagline of embodied AI is that experience is understanding. And I think that this plays directly into this idea of how valuable data is for robots and for robotic companies. This is your world. This is your reality. It is the information that comes to your brain through your senses. You've never really experienced anything else. There are some feedback loops and you can hear yourself think, but this is pretty much it. This is what you experience from the day that you're born, before that you're born, that allows you to become you. Now, what if we were able to capture all of that data as it was streaming into your brain and in fact reroute it to the cloud? Well, we would be able to do some pretty amazing things. We don't have the sensor capabilities to get near this level of detail yet, a human level of, for example, in the hand, there are 17,000 mechanoreceptors. In the human eye, in each one of your optic nerves, there are 1 million fibers. The spinal cord has 10 million fibers sending gigabytes of data every second. But we are getting to the point where we can create devices that can capture all that sensory experience and send it to a central location to learn. And what I want you to think about is what happens. What happens when you don't just do that once? You don't do that with a single machine and a single team. You do that with a lot of machines in parallel. What you are capturing is the essence of experience, the essence of understanding, and you are able to analyze it and learn from it in a massively parallel fashion. And this is the promise of, I believe, robotics in the next 6 months to 5 years, is the ability to get devices out into the world that are experiencing the world, that are being taught by humans how to work with the arbitrary complexity that was mentioned earlier that is our world, and centralizing that so that we can really, really push through those barriers that we've had today, which were based on limited data. Now, in our case, in Embodies AI case, it's going to start small. It's going to start with a little guy. This is just a proof of concept prototype. We think it's going to be cute. But it definitely starts now, and this is not the future. This is today. I don't know if this video is going to play here. Okay. All right. Well, let me see if I can get back there. Nope. Okay. Well, what you would have seen is a little video of the robot running around in my house, playing with a ball, going over obstacles, and just generally being adorable. And the reason that we're going after something that is cute and adorable first is because of expectations. I had a wonderful discussion at lunch, and we talked about how some robots are expected to perform perfectly. Well, think about it like this. You never expect your pets to perform perfectly. You never expect your children to perform perfectly. And when they don't, you actually enjoy it. It is a fun, intrinsically enjoyable experience to try and teach something that is cute and small and makes mistakes. And so that's where we're starting. That's what we're going after. And yeah, that's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please step up to the mic.
AI is easy to use.
Yes. This will still not work in 5 years, but you know there will be an AI telling you why it won't work. Yeah.
So what does this guy do?
Basically, he runs around and is cute and adorable. He can also, let me see if, you know, he's intended to be a pet.
What's the price point like?
We're not talking about that quite yet. So, you know, the idea is that he can run around and play fetch, and this is not a great platform for actually having him run around. If I drive him, he will spin and then fall, and that would be bad. But you want to catch the ball?
Sure.
Oh, there. Okay, good. It landed. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
What kind of data are you capturing, and what do you plan to do with it, and how will you use it to improve other robots?
That is an excellent question, and it's something that I hope that everyone here is thinking about, because we are capturing video, we are capturing audio, we are capturing accelerometer data. The final prototype is actually going to have a tactile sensor on the outside. It's going to know where it is in a geographical space because the hardware gives us for free GPS data. And because we are going to be centrally processing all of this information, it gets streamed off onto servers. Now, this is not information that ever needs to be seen by a human being, but it raises really important privacy questions, and it's why we're trying to think about security from the ground up. How do you encrypt your video streams? How do you encrypt your audio streams? How do you make sure that on your servers humans can't see the data even if they wanted to? There are a host of interesting legal questions around privacy in these little guys, aside from IP and technology, and you know, they're just fun, that I hope you guys are thinking about. Because I would love to think that you are all my friends and I can be a radical innovator and you can help me not get sued.
5 years from now, as this marches on, for my kid, should I want my kid to have this or Lassie?
Well, is your kid allergic to Lassie? Do you mind cleaning up poop? These are, it's actually a very, doing this project, well, let me focus on that a little bit, because in this project I discovered some rather sobering statistics. In the United States every year, 4 million cats and dogs are killed. They're put to sleep. And why do we have to keep killing all of these creatures? It's not because people don't love them, it's not because they're not adorable enough or anything like that, it's because people move and their landlords don't let them have pets. In some cases it is because they have behavioral problems, allergies are developed, they're gifts and they're not wanted. There are many reasons people give up animals. But I think for at least a small percentage of people who would like to be pet owners and either can't be or shouldn't be, a viable alternative is an artificial pet.
I'm sorry if I missed you, if you told this story already, but have you heard the story about why Paro is a seal? Do you ever hear this story before?
Please.
Okay, so there's this therapeutic robot called Paro, right? It's very. Can you not hear me? There's a therapeutic robot called Paro, which is this little robotic seal. I bet has anyone seen that? And I know you have. You've been doing this for some time. And so this is a very viable commercial product, but also used for therapeutic reasons and things like that. And it's being purchased by hospitals, particularly in Europe.
It's a $6,000 robot.
It's a $6,000 robot. It's a higher, I assume, higher price point here. I know you're not talking about it yet. And so when they asked the inventor, like, why a seal? Because literally it's for like dementia patients or to soothe you and things like that. And they asked I saw a video of them asking the inventor of why they could come up with a seal, and it was because of expectations, right? And so the idea was that none of us feel threatened by a seal, right? I mean, unless you watch Arrested Development, and then perhaps. But assuming you don't watch Arrested Development, then you have a pretty nice mental. But you actually have no expectations of how a seal behaves, right? I mean, do you think what does a seal do? Exactly, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know. And so whatever it did, that's plenty seal-like, you know what I mean? And so I wonder, are you creating any because this reads dog to me a little bit,
yeah,
right?
So
I mean, are you toying with that at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the larger project, and I hope you all make it out to Maker Faire because the complete prototype will be shown there. This creature is called a fen. And you don't have any expectations around that word because you don't know what it is, but it's a lovable furry alien. It will have a furry exterior, it will have glowing lights associated with it, it will have an entire character built up around this essentially robotic endoskeleton. So hopefully people will approach it with open eyes or open minds, and not have an expectation for a dog or a cat. And really, initially, we want to see what those expectations are. If is playing fetch with the robot, which this guy can do, is that sufficient? Do you need more functionality out of your pet? Because over time, obviously, this is an internet-connected device. It can become more intelligent and it can gain functionality, but we need to know what that is.
You were talking about encoding law. How do you encode personality or character?
Well, there are two different ways that I can imagine doing it. This guy is as adorable as I could possibly make him. He is. Hopefully, his little expression is changing over there. But it's a really important question, I think, and. There are two ways to do it. One, you can take the tactic of, say, Furby or Aibo or the Pleo and have a preset curve for that personality. You can have a random seed and say, okay, I'm going to either go down the sort of aggressive, sort of finicky personality, or I'm going to go down the lovable, really relaxed personality. You can pre-encode that. Or, much more interesting from the artificial intelligence perspective, is you can have it essentially be random. If you are mean to this robot, maybe it will have a meaner disposition. I would like these to be a platform and a launching point for true artificial intelligence, at least at the animalistic level. And that means learning from the randomness and noise of the real world.
So then, when you're making this robot, do you consider that people might want to give it rights the way they want to give their pets rights?
Yes, I think that should we give these guys rights? People will probably want to give them rights. And I think the answer is twofold. One, yes, absolutely. I think that if you abuse your pet, is that something that means that you lose access to the service which enables the pet? That might be something that we actually do, but that's more of a a company policy as opposed to a legal framework. I think it will be a long time before the law is ready to recognize any artificial entity as sufficiently complex as needing legally protected rights. But I think companies can take a firm stand early on to demonstrate that that's actually important. You know, if that's what your intent is as a company to create an intelligent entity, you should ask people to treat it with respect.
Kate Darling actually has a paper on this very topic from the last one as well.
Oh,
So.
wonderful. I haven't read that. Yes.
I'm just curious, if you were to place the smartest robot that exists now that's on phylogenetic scale, like are they smart as insects, or smarter than insects, smart as a raccoon, or I mean, have you ever thought about that? Where would you place them on a intelligent beings?
They're pretty low down. They're
Smart as chairs.
yeah, chairs. There are some that are there are some very well designed reactive robots that can execute commands very, very quickly in response to changing environmental conditions. And that looks like intelligence, but it doesn't meet my criteria for intelligence, which is sort of being able to create an analogy, be able to be a little creative in your thought process.
And I sometimes wonder whether, just with kind of initial thought, whether such beings, such entities,
Yeah.
whether the law that relates to animals, like primates, but not humans, and whether they have any kind of legal rights. And there's a lot of the law text and so forth. I wonder how that relates.
Well, I'm hoping actually that the progress of intelligence in robotics sheds light on that. I think there are a lot of people who are unwilling to grant thought processes to our, ape relatives. But if you have someone who understands intelligence well enough to build it, they become an expert on a topic that we simply don't have. And they might be able to say, you know what, they're doing all the things that I saw in the creation of my intelligent machine, therefore they must be at least as intelligent.
You mentioned that you're going to start small and start cute.
Yeah.
Where are you planning to go in the long run, like for the bigger picture? And second, in a way, is this sort of helping to ease the transition to when we become fully automated? I mean, Professor Kahlo here had talked about like the seals, instead of like giving someone a complete robot to deal with, like a seal to sort of ease that transition. I mean, we go to the supermarket and the checkout there is completely automated. They recently switched the Golden Gate Bridge from toll takers to electronic tolling. I mean, in a way, is this sort of helping to ease that transition where you might see more of a interactive robot as opposed to just, going on through and swiping your card?
A non-answer to your first question, we're not talking about the long-term roadmap yet, because this is pretty early days, even for this guy. And the second question is, I don't know if this particular robot does that. I think that there will be robots that, especially in terms of the food industry, will have much more of a direct impact there. You don't need to interact with a human, it becomes automated. So, it's interesting that you ask about the checkout, because I much prefer the automated checkout. I like machines, I understand them, I would rather interact with them. I'm sorry, humans in the audience. But, there's a wonderful company, Momentum Machines, that's building an automated hamburger robot. So you walk into their restaurant and you tell it, or maybe even before you walk into the restaurant, it just knows your perfect hamburger and it makes it for you right there. Momentum Machines. It's going to be incredible, and yes, it will isolate some people, help ease the transition. I don't know if that's the right term, but yeah, we're going that direction.
Hi, I'm Mike Vanderloos from UBC. Just one comment. A person that you could follow to figure out where robots are on the, quote, phylogenetic scale is Czech Rodney Brooks and his Rethink Robotics. Mm-hmm. I'll stop there. I think he puts it slightly above insects and slightly below mammals.
I would say that Rodney Brooks is the leading thinker in robotics. I mean, he's been the leading thinker in robotics for decades now, but I think he still is. He built, Genghis and these other little literal insect robots that had walking gaits that were dynamic and very, very unusual for their time. He started I think he started Psych, is that right? Yeah, he's really impressive. And he will be at Economy Forum this Thursday, if you're going to
The
that.
comment I wanted to make is that you called it he.
Yes.
And I haven't checked between its rear legs, but is it a physical embodiment that you attribute sex to it, or a gender to it, I should say?
The reason
or is it that you are...
The reason I attributed gender is because of the character backstory, these fen creatures that I alluded to. And at Maker Faire, we're actually going to be releasing an illustrated story, the entire backstory of these creatures and how we came to interact with them. And one of the characters, Alistair, is male in that story. I think it's very important that people make an emotional connection above and beyond a, wow, that's sort of neat connection to robots. And one of the best ways to do that is to give them not just personality, but a backstory and a life, and, you know, for us, gender.
Is that something that you think the manufacturer should be doing, or that the client, the customer, should be doing?
I think that it will eventually be a choice. Do you want a boy dog or a girl dog is a choice today, and if do you want a boy fen or a girl fen, I think that's a perfectly legitimate choice.
Just in thinking of the long-term picture, you're starting with small and cute, which tells me that eventually you're going for big and belligerent. And as you know, doing the functions of any household pet include barking at strangers and preventing, you know, a form of security. I mean, is that an ultimate goal as well for this sort of thing that has a camera built in and can perform better than my Labrador Retriever can, those functions?
Given the aggressive timeline that I'm trying to develop this guy on, it's really going to be decided by what consumers are asking for. When you can write software centrally and deploy functionality globally, you can be much more reactive in the robotic space than previously, where you had to re-engineer the robot to give it a new bark. So that will be driven by the consumer.
I'm wondering, I saw you had a background in addiction research.
Yeah.
At what point does the emotional connection become an addiction? I imagine there's a commercial motivation for that to happen as much as possible. And
we like to think about it as love rather than emotional addiction. But yeah.
Are there any cases to date of people, you know, refusing to be out of the presence of their robot, or you know, you bumped my robot, of course I
should say that my addiction background is in video games, so I don't know about addiction to robots. Yeah.
I guess I want to come back in a certain way to the legal questions and come back to one of Ryan's old papers, where Ryan, you drew a distinction between a path in which automation and what we call robots would essentially be more and more advanced toasters, but with distinct, you know, you're aiming to have a single function that products liability law will recognize for that purpose and not get you in trouble, versus a more generalized robotic framework trying to do many different things, but from a legal liability standpoint, potentially raising more issues, at least in the United States, given our product liability system. I guess the question I've got here is an enormous amount of what you're describing for this seems as though it's attempting to take some very basic features about this and then persuade the human audience to invest an awful lot emotionally in the backstory and in the rest of this to create a connection. And whereas for other kind of things, it's though you just really want a better and better machine, just, you know, and that's no emotional connection. Do you see those two areas of robotics sort of moving apart over time? Do you see yourself having much to do with this technology in relation to the checkout thing, where it's, you know, you would like it as dehumanized as possible?
There is a synergy between the two sides of the equation, and they produce better results for, you know, both markets. One market says, I don't care about utility, I want entertainment, I want fun, I want love. You know, that the Aibo was an entertainment robot. That's how it was marketed. We're saying that this is going to be a pet. and we want the expectations around there to be in that area. However, artificial intelligence, and I believe the development of intelligence from experiencing the real world, will impact the other side, the utilitarian aspect of robotics, and enable greater functionality there. It's what I think is very interesting is how the utilitarian robotics market could easily be redescribed as the smart appliance market, and it's very hard to. Is it just a marketing jargon to say it's a robot rather than a smart appliance at that point? I don't know.
So this guy is really tugging on some serious heartstrings. Those eyes, giant saucer-like, extremely cute. That said, we're not just looking at him. He's looking back at us and listening, and he's got a microphone and a camera.
Yeah.
So already a lot of people feel awkward doing it in front of the dog, and I'm sure this doesn't change more, aside from the fact that it's going back to your servers.
Yeah.
There's a ton of things that this raises.
Absolutely.
Potentially the ability for, not only stuff to be viewed by your employees, but also wiretaps.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought at all about what it would take to secure this data, this private encounters that happen in the home, this protected space from a really cute, cuddly little guy?
Absolutely. I mean, my very first discussion a year ago with Ryan was on the privacy implications of this technology before I even started building anything. And they're not insignificant challenges to make sure that a data stream that needs to be processed, at least minimally, doesn't end up as a honeypot for a subpoena. I don't want to get sued, I don't want to get subpoenaed. Undoubtedly, both of those things will happen. So I think it comes down to two things. One, how informed can I make sure that the end user is about the technology and where that data ends up so that they know exactly what's happening? And then two, the technological responsibility of trying to make sure that there's no storage that isn't absolutely required. There isn't any length of time where it could be, I don't know. As I said, I'm not a lawyer. I will need to see whether or not you can actually get around some of these things. But technologically, I think that the machine learning and processing aspect of this is doable in such a way that it does not expose data even internally to employees. Now, there absolutely will be, out of necessity, a set of data that people agree to open up and share with companies, not just ours, but many other companies for incentives. Because, as I alluded to earlier, data is incredibly valuable. The IP around the hardware, the IP around the character, the IP around the software is one thing, but the data, the experience. Imagine if we could take all of the experience in your minds and transport it into somebody else's. Many of you make excellent salaries because of the experiences you've gone through. What if we could move that to another person on a whim? And that is where a lot of the value is going to be. So there's a lot of incentive for companies to incent people to open up their data and make it available for analysis, storage, and study. And Ryan asked me to make sure that this is as short as possible, so I'm going to take one more question and then we're done.
That's a perfect segue to what I was going to ask you. This is a great example of where maybe being open would be good. So are there standards, some sort of standards, so that people can actually share sensory data between many robots?
Mm-hmm. I absolutely think so. I think that there is a requirement to lock down data as much as possible for people who want it, but there's nothing in the underlying technology that it couldn't have a segmented set of functionality where this is a hackable platform and that is built around open standards. I think that transparency in terms of your security, your standard security model is very important. It needs to be inspectable. It needs to be understandable. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that we should be broadcasting everything in the clear. I certainly wouldn't do that. All right.
Please join me in thanking Ian. That was fabulous, Ian. Thanks so much.